Welcome to the Level Up Artist Podcast. We're your hosts, Adriana Amay and
Jackie Sanders. We're two art professionals sharing forth the advice and business lessons we have learned along our creative journeys.
we talk to artists, leaders, and art professionals to demystify the creative process and discover new ways to succeed as a career-minded artist.
If you find value in these conversations, please go ahead and subscribe. This will help other creatives like you find our podcast, and you'll be notified when we drop a new episode. So on today's episode, we decided to switch it up a little bit because being pulled in a million different directions, especially during the holiday season, oftentimes you can have those moments. I know Adriana and I are both feeling that right now, where we feel like we want to be creative, but not necessarily in the way that we're quote unquote known for. Whether you're a painter, a drawer, a sculptor, there are points where we find pattern making, like we want to be creative, just not in our traditional practice. So we're gonna honestly just share a handful of ways that we feel like we as artists need hobbies, kind of the value that they serve as productive distractions, as creative side projects, and just a way to share and kind of give yourself permission and grace for having these creative distractions. Because they do serve as an outlet, and debatably, they are part of the creative process too, right? But there may be a little guilt that comes with it. So I'm curious, Adriana, what are one of the productive procrastination side creative projects that you've been getting into other than what's in your studio?
Yeah, and I'm glad we're talking about this because I mean you're right, and I do find it funny. Sometimes people are like, "Well, what do you do for fun? You just make more art, right?" And it's like, yes, but that's not the whole story because sometimes when I'm trying to make art, my brain automatically goes to how does this fit into the rest of my body of work? And
Hmm.
is this a whole new series that's coming out? And when am I going to sell it? And like it just gets a little more complicated. And sometimes it's hard to just make art for art's sake. And then that's when I find it really necessary, or if I'm feeling burnt out, that's when I find it extremely important to just kind of take a little bit of a detour into other types of creative outlets. And over the years, it can look, I mean, it's taken many different shapes. One of them right now is actually, this is so nerdy. This, like the other things I want to tell you all about, is so nerdy, but here we are. So I've been spending a good amount of time on building kind of like a gamer corner in one of the rooms in our house, and kind of like having a whole theme. And yes, it has the lights and the controllers, and I don't know, it's very cute. So I've spent like a lot of time like curating, how long did it take me to like find the one desk that I wanted to use? Like, anyways, like spending a lot of time on that. But that also went into, and part of this, by the way, it all started because my laptop died. And it turned into I could get another one or I could just build a computer. And it's been a few years since I had done it. And I just went full blast instead of just like, keeping it surface level. We went full research mode as we do sometimes. And it turned, obviously, it is a creative outlet. I am building a thing. Much like if I'm building a sculpture or I'm going to stretch a canvas, like there's so much research involved, like what kind of wood, what kind of nails, what kind of glue, what kind of this, what kind of that. It's the same thing. What kind of chip, what kind of graphics card, what kind of case, what kind of, a lot of it, there's a lot of parallels, right? In terms of what happened. So it started with the one computer to replace my dead computer, my dead laptop. And then, yeah, it's kind of continued. And now we're building other computers for people that haven't even asked for them yet. Wait till they see them. They're so freaking cute. Um, but like doing full blown themes. Anyway,
I love that. I haven't seen them yet, for the record, but as someone who doesn't know much about computers besides when they work and when they don't, I'm so impressed by that creative side project because it truly feels like a different language that I know nothing about. Even just you listening, like, oh, well, there's the microchips and there's these boards and there's that. I'm like, well, those are like words that I know, but like I literally know nothing else. But when you see them, like yeah, there's like hyper curated themed computers. They always look so cute. Like yeah,
Yeah,
it makes sense. Someone
that's
has
the
to build
world
them.
we dove into. I was like,
Yes, I
some
love
people
that.
just go with white case, black case, and a whole bunch of art like lights, right? ARGBs and whatever. No, we didn't go there. Like my main computer is mint strawberry. That's the name of the or the edition of the case. And yes, just those colors. And like the inside has all these colors and it has a Stitch, like from Lilo and Stitch, a Stitch wearing his spacesuit. And like it
Stop.
has like, oh yeah, it has like LED lights inside of it and little screens. Like we went all out. And then the
Okay,
next
you're gonna have to
one,
share
like,
pictures at some point, at
yeah,
least on like your Instagram or newsletter or
at least
something.
on stories. Yeah,
I want
yeah,
to see them.
yeah, yeah. And now we're like onto the matcha boba tea theme, macaron theme. Like we're going all out. So it's actually open not just the part about building, it's actually opened another avenue of like, okay, maybe I can do these digital designs that now are gonna get printed onto the computers because of course we're not just gonna stop at buying
Of
store-bought
course.
stuff. Of course, we're artist people. This is gonna
You can
happen.
start 3D printing your own shapes and then
Don't
assemble
tempt me.
sculptures with
Don't tempt
it.
me. I was looking at a 3D printer, but I was like, no, no, no. I'm gonna work with somebody that already invested all that money and I'll pay them because this could be a flight of fame. Like this could be a temporary interest. So we're not going to
Yeah.
go to $3,000 deep territory. But yes, several hundred. But yeah. No, it's just like a good outlet in between it's minimizing some of that pressure of I need my next piece of artwork to be XYZ to fit this. Now, obviously, if there's a commission that's different, mural that's different, or there's an exhibition that I want to put work into, that's different. But like sitting down to make art for art's sake, sometimes you just need that quick break of I'm just going to do something else, in this case with my hands, just like art, where I'm building, just like art, where I'm researching, just like art, where there's like a little bit of that big, I don't want to call it beginner brain because I used to build them, but that was a long time ago, but almost like coming back onto what's new, what's interesting, the forums, like the research. There's like a lot of exciting things with it, much like art. So it's a good pause to put in
Yeah.
and it's still productive and it's just not I'm not twiddling my thumbs like I'm making a thing. But yeah, it's necessary. It's I don't know. It's a good side thing. Yeah, let's just
Yeah.
call
A
it.
creative hobby, some would say.
It is well actually yeah it is. I'm like and I'm trying to keep it at hobby level, not like going all out and let me set up a new website and a new email and a new this and new branding and it's like too far, too far.
Yeah.
Just do this for fun, see where it takes you, and then we go from there. But no, I'm glad you mentioned it. And that's something like it's exciting for us to talk to you all about because it does happen sometimes where you just it's not burnout per se, um, or it could be the beginnings of it, but it could be more of a I need to I mean, at least the way I see it, right? Creativity for me is an engine, and that
Mhm.
engine needs a break sometimes, and I need new inputs that go into it.
Mhm.
And it's not just studying art movements or, the let me look at tutorials or whatever. Like, those are all many ways, and we've talked about them in other episodes. Those are all great ways to reignite creativity, but sometimes you literally need to pause anything heart related for a moment and just get inputs elsewhere and then
Yeah.
let that marinate new ideas and things like that. So I don't know, so very nerdy, I know, but yeah.
No, I love it. And to your point, I do think there is that element of like, where does re-inspiration come from? And to your point, what we talked about, like it can be from going to museums, observing other people's creative process. But part of it is just that idea of like inspiration comes to the moving hand. And if you're not feeling called to do what you traditionally would be working with, whether it's painting, drawing, etc., it's still productive to keep your hands moving and those wheels turning in a different way. I feel like, especially if you have an established art practice, whether it's a business, whether you attend markets, whether you have a physical studio space, whether it's just part of your identity, especially, that's one thing that I found almost that we like really haven't talked about a bunch, kind of imposter syndrome, but not quite. It was more so like the more successful my art business was, the more I felt a creative roadblock coming on because whether you're known for a specific style, you don't really have what you perceive as that flexibility to just play within your practice as much as when no one is watching, right? Like it's really hard to unfeel the eyes of people. And obviously, Adriana and I come from the perspective of having public facing studios. And so feeling that presence is absolutely incredible. Do not get me wrong, it has been fantastic personally for my business, all the things, but it does change your relationship to your work. I think also when you start relying on your work for the finance of it, like the financial benefits, whether it's like to pay your studio rent, to pay personal bills, to pay for your living, it does change your relationship to your practice. So I think that's another one of those benefits of having a creative hobby is so important because it keeps that engine rolling, like you said, Adriana. Um, for me, the kind of equivalent would be house projects that I've been doing. So, for context, I live in a 500 square foot condo apartment, very small by many people's standards, but I am absolutely obsessed with it. I love it. And this is my personal living space, not my studio. Because in the next few years, a personal goal of mine is to live in a tiny house, whether it's on wheels mobile, whether it's just a tiny house on slab. I don't know, but it's been a very fun time because I feel like I've been inspired to reinvest in my condo again. With the creative prompt that I essentially gave myself of spending as minimal amount of money as I can. So, like repurposing furniture, repurposing materials, and that includes potentially repurposing materials, objects, paint from my studio because come next June, my contract and Adriana's as well is up at Art Space. And so I personally am still up in the air on, do I have a physical studio space? If so, where is it going to be? Do I bring my creative practice home to my apartment? And so it kind of brings up that idea of, well, if I'm bringing a studio practice into my 500 square foot living space, I need to be very, very efficient with storage ideas. So I've been like building walls, taking artwork off the walls, and like rather than having a TV, I can have a projector. Painting accent walls just to like energize the space again, to give it like there's something really refreshing about changing the physical space in which you live for me because it feels very symbolic of like a fresh start, a new chapter. I think especially as we're going into the fall season, it just has very cozy vibes. So I actually used paint from previous mural projects and like custom made my own colors. Not because I couldn't buy those colors, but it's, well, this paint's already paid for. So I can use that because otherwise I'm gonna have to find a place to store it or another project to use it on in the future, which is totally doable, but it's already paid for, so you might as well use it.
Use the
So,
leftovers, yeah.
yeah, so it's been really fun kind of like thinking about my physical space in which I live, which has actually inspired me in my studio practice to think about, okay, how could I take my work more sculptural? Is that an avenue I want to look forward to of woodworking with building these shelves and staining them and finishing them? I've loved that process. So it's definitely got some creative ideas going. But until then, I just love investing into my house and like nesting a little bit, which always feels fun.
Yeah. And you're still painting.
Yeah,
I mean, so
exactly.
there's that. I mean, it's
Yeah.
different, obviously, especially if it's like a solid accent wall versus like a detailed mural, but it's still paint in hand to a certain extent.
Right.
Yeah.
And
No.
color mixing and oh, this blue is like a little too warm or this is like a little too cool or
And I know
having
there was probably grid paper involved or graph paper at some point. Also trying to figure out where does this fit
yeah.
and the measurement of this table and this shelf and
Oh
like
yeah.
still, I mean, it's still super creative.
Oh yeah, the next phase of it will be once there's one more shelf I need to hang that's repurposed from my studio. But once that is hung, the fun project will be relaying out my gallery wall of artwork. So I always am very intentional about trying to collect local artists, whether I'm traveling, going to markets, to document an event, whether it's like a girls' trip or a wedding, buying a piece of local art to commemorate, oh, that was the weekend my brother got married, and this was like a local artist from a gallery. But I kind of want to take all the artwork down and then just like re-curate
Curated.
my
Yeah.
space, which is also very fun. Maybe leave some room for like new additions. So yeah, that
Yeah.
would be
Yeah.
next phase.
Yeah. So it's like not art making art, but it's still using our creativity, which, you know,
Right.
obviously like I super appreciate that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely one of the ways in which we're doing it. I would say another way in which we're expressing our creativity and non-art or directly related to our art ways definitely has to do with like, movement and community and social aspects. And I would
Mm-hmm.
say for me, it's like I recently had um an artist date, I guess I could call it. I went with another artist to one of our local arboretums and we just walked around, nerded out on plants, took a whole bunch of photos of plants and bees and all kinds of stuff. Like it was just like fun. But then we like found a little pond area and then we just sat down and we chatted and we sketched and we painted and like it was also very low key. It wasn't like, oh, I'm trying to depict what I see in front of me either. Like we weren't trying
Yeah.
to realistically like plein air anything. It was more like we're just having a friend conversation and we're just like, in my case, I was like just playing with abstract colors, like just shapes, like
Mm-hmm.
not even anything. Um, but taking off some of that pressure of trying to, because a lot of times when I do artwork, and I kind of referred to this earlier, a lot of times I end up going, how does this fit into the my existing body of work, right? And it's hard for me sometimes not to make art thinking about that. That's also what helps my art stay cohesive. It's like, how do I expand what I already have, even if I'm detouring a little bit, but I'm not completely departing from what I normally do. So even having that option to be distracted while talking to somebody else and just literally giving myself permission not to, it's one way to do it. And then the other one is at the time of this recording, um, I'm packing up to go to a trip in another state, going over to Arizona and learning from another artist. And if any of you have seen my art, I don't paint realistic. I know
Mm-hmm.
how to paint realistic. I have painted realistic. That is not really my jam. And the artist I'm going to take a workshop from paints realistic. So that's going to be very interesting. Clouds, water, ripples, like movement of light, and again, very realistic. But I'm excited about it because on the one, I'm paying to not paint in my style. If we can put it that way, I will be quote unquote forced to not
Yeah.
style. Two, I get to wear learner's hat, right? I'm going to be learning from somebody that's been doing a style that I like, that I'm not necessarily aiming towards, but I'm interested to see what their approach is to it. I'm trying to keep out of it the whole like this can be a mural because it could be a mural. So I'm like, no, no, we're not going in with that. We're going in with what else, what new tools can we add to the artistic toolbox, right? Like, is this a style we want to explore further? Or are we just doing this as a mini artistic vacation, so to speak? Um, and I'm also going to meet other artists that I met several years ago. So it's going to be like a mini reunion type situation. So it'll be cool to just be in a new environment, new artistic style with friends and things like that. But it's hard because again, part of my brain's like, but how does this fit the rest of what you do? And I'm going to have to like push through and be like, no, there's other I can still have my creative expression, but can I challenge myself to do it in a style that I normally don't do, and
Hmm.
still have fun? And I mean, it could still generate ideas for the type of artwork that I do, but we're kind of going very detour route. So, yeah, that's the other thing I'm like looking forward to. Is like trying to do more of these other we're trying to explore more of these outlets of different from what I do. At one point, I was also like even thinking like, oh, I'd love to take like stained glass class, for example. Again, things that are different media and or different styles from what I'm doing as a way to add more to that toolbox, if you will. Like and
Yeah.
taking some of that pressure off if I have to do more of what I already do. To help pay the bills. So how
Yeah.
about you,
No,
Jackie?
I love that. I think there is something to be said about like taking the pressure off the outcome, right? Like it's still creative adjacent, but like no one will like no one else has stakes in it. Like this piece specifically from this workshop has to be successful, right? It's just for if you learn that you love it, great. You can incorporate it and as a tool. If you do it and you're like, you know what, unless the client is like actually begging me, I'm not really going to suggest that I can do this. More of a choice if you don't like the process. So I think that's really good. And I feel like that's one thing that I have had to grapple with this feeling of kind of craving hobbies because oftentimes as an artist, as my a big portion of my identity and my business, a lot of people are like, oh, well, you just get to make art all day. That must be so fun. And it's grappling with that idea of like, it's not that it's not fun, but it does change your relationship with what was once a hobby, right? It puts different pressure on it. So I think for me at this point, a hobby is defined by no one else is benefiting from me doing this other than myself. Like I have to take other people's input or kind of like the ripple effect. Otherwise, it feels like just another responsibility. Um, so of course I get competitive with myself and I sign up and make these events that put
Jackie
deadlines
competitive?
on.
Never.
So, one of my creative hobbies, which I feel like for me was something I wanted to start something similar to you, Adriana, that I could not monetize per se in that exact moment. So I started doing swing dancing and line dancing, which if you follow me on Instagram, you've probably seen some like Thursday night videos of me sharing it because it is fun to share or like talk to people about. It's definitely brought a cool sense of community. There's a local group that I do it with. It's physically active, which is good, uses a different part of my brain. But I think the thing I'm most proud of myself for is how realistic I am with this hobby because I can get very 0 to 100 or like I have to go all in or what's the point? And although I would love to say that I am that way with this hobby, I definitely am not. Don't get me wrong, I love it. And so swing dancing for me is like me dancing with another partner versus line dancing is almost I basically like it's equivalent to when you're a kid and you make up a dance with your friends and then like perform to your parents. It's basically like adults doing that. Like you learn the dance off YouTube and then there's like a group of 50 people that all show up and you do these coordinated line dances of like, hey, look at this. Ooh, I know this dance. Let's do it together. So it's kind of like a flash mob, but it's like very funny.
Definitely flash mob.
It's so fun. And some people are so good at it in that they put their own flair on it. They do like extra spins. They like, you can tell they don't even have to think about it. And I think about it a lot. So I'm probably not very good, but I enjoy it. So I have done 3 line dancing competitions. No, two. I've done two so far. I have another one in 2 days. Have I learned the dances for it? No. Will I do it anyway? Yes.
Yes,
So part of me is like, man, I really should have learned these dances sooner so I could practice them for months and get really good and win the competition. But realistically, it'll be what it'll be. Worst case scenario, if I end up embarrassing myself for like 2 minutes. I kind of feel like embarrassment is an underutilized emotion these days. Like it's not gonna kill you to be a little embarrassed, and like it's you can't take yourself too seriously. Of oh man, I missed the step of this coordinated dance. Like I'm 32. I need to not care about that. Yes. So one of my community building and like movement outlets has been swing dancing and line dancing. And hopefully at the time of this recording, who knows, maybe I'll shock the world and win the competition. Realistically, probably won't. But it'll be a lot of fun. So we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it has I like that it has the social aspect. Like that's what I like about mine too. Is like mine's like more smaller groups, yours is like larger groups with an audience, but it still has the, you got yourself out of the house kind of thing
Yeah.
and like went and met other people and I don't know, you're still learning. It's just like mine.
Yeah.
It's like you're still you still have a learning aspect to it. And I also love that with it, there's also an element of possibility, of like
Yeah.
to go elsewhere, whether we take it seriously or not, or we want to pursue
Right.
it. But it's like full of possibilities. It's not just I did the one thing, I'm done.
Yeah. It's also, I feel like it's a hobby that I could like keep doing for the rest of my life. Like it's active, but not like stressful wear and tear on your body. It's very fun, lighthearted. Like it's hard to be in a bad mood when you're dancing. And yeah, they have competitions like all over the US that like people travel to. So like who knows? Maybe I'll be traveling for competitions in like a few years. We'll see. But before we wrap up, I am also curious. What are some distractions with like shows or content? Because of course, that's like the default distraction for everyone. So what have you been watching or distracted by while you've been taking a little creative hobby break?
Mm, so as what's the word I'm looking for? As validated by my mental health professional. Thank you. No, I'm dead serious. I am dead serious because
No, I know you are. That's why
look,
it's
I grew
serious.
up in the type of family that if you're idle, like if you watch more than, I don't know, an hour or two of TV per day, you are like you're wasting your life away, right? Like this is the kind of parent. One of them was like that. The other one didn't care and would spend like however many hours. But the other one was like more almost militaristic in that sense. Love you, mom. But essentially, like I have to battle those inner monologues of like, how many hours are you spending doing the stuff? Anyway, so I had to talk to my therapist, who was like, no, it's fine. Like, obviously, if you do this 8 hours a day, like that, when you're self-employed and you're doing a hobby for 8 hours a day instead of your actual self-employed job, that could be an issue. But an hour here and there, like that's not a big deal. Like everybody does it. And in my case, instead of being doom scrolling, as we all do every once in a while, even if we don't want to, because that stuff is designed to trap you like that, then I've instead been doing things like watching anime, wholesome ones, don't worry, all good. Cute stuff and like all the artwork, I love it, and all the different stories and the different universes or different like alternate realities and stuff. That's always fun. But I think one of the ones I've been enjoying the most is going back to video games, but not in I can't look away. I've been like very intentional and mindful of what I play. Because I can get into it. Like I can like get into the stories and like I want to play it and what happens next. But no, the ones I've been delving into either have a social aspect, so some of my friends play them as well. Um, or they'll have more. One of the ones I've been playing, I'll just go ahead and say it. It's called No Man's Sky. It's been around for a while, but you're basically exploring other planets, and there's like trillions of planets because some of them are like generated by the system as you discover them. Some like it has other creatures and other temperatures, and it just kind of like fuels your imagination of like, I wonder what Saturn is really like, what Pluto is really like, or what some of these other planets beyond our galaxy are really like, and what kind of plants do they have, what kind of, and the game is so visually rich, where it's not enough, it doesn't look like Earth, right? Like some things, yes, it has in common, but all the different colors, all the textures. It's like it's artwork. It's basically I'm walking through artwork. Um, it's been really interesting. I've been seeing like color combinations, but then I'm like, ooh, I would want to mix that color and put it in my sketchbook, kind of situation, or I don't know. It's like a lot of different things, but it does help too because it's the kind of chill game or the ones I'm focusing on instead of first person shooters or adventures or whatever. I'm focusing on the more chill, cozy games because it also gives me time for introspection. So as I'm walking, my character, I guess, I'm walking around on this other planet, like discovering the flora and fauna and things like that. Um, Going for a dive underwater and seeing what kind of plants are underwater and like what kind of,
Mhm.
underwater life. As I'm doing that, the music is very relaxing and it allows me to also think of other things at the same time. So I'm not so engaged into it that I can't think of other things. So I could be thinking of artwork, I could be thinking of something I read, I could be thinking of um,
Mhm.
museum that I want to visit. Like I can still engage other parts of my creative brain without being so into the game that's like, like how sometimes um well, and I've done it. I'm not a big sports fan, but I've done it. Like you might be watching a sports game and you're just like looking at every move that they do, and then this happened, and then that happened. Or even a movie can be like that, where it just like kind of captures you. You're like, what's gonna happen next? I need to like find the next clue, to whatever, to this who done it type thing. And you're just so into it that all your brain power is just that, right? Like that's it. Like you don't even multitask, you just do that versus some of these games and animes I'm like watching are giving me the mental space to multitask. And for my type of brain, that's actually a good thing because I could have something going on and then have the iPad and be like, oh, I like that texture, I like that shape, I like that color. Like I can still do both, which I
Mhm.
find kind of important to do when we're in this stage of like collecting more input, if you will, for our creativity later on to process later on, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah. How about you, Jackie?
No,
Any
that totally
shows?
makes sense. I feel like multitasking is definitely how I consume a lot of content, maybe less productively than yours. Mine is a lot of like miscellaneous YouTube videos, but I definitely get sucked down that rabbit hole, which is probably not good, but just like accepting that this is like relatively neutral content. Like my life is not going to be impacted by this at all. And I'm definitely a person who has the habit of watching the same like shows over and over and over again because like you know how it's gonna end. You know what's about to happen. Like I'm not ready to be like on an emotional roller coaster. I know this person is gonna say this, then this is gonna happen, which is very comforting. But one
It's almost
series
like
that
having
I've
other
got,
people with you,
what was
right?
that?
It's almost social, almost like you're having other people with you.
Right. And it's like I'm just like observing these conversations. And I think that's one reason I really like specifically this YouTube channel by her name is Whitney Port. Her and her husband do reaction videos. And if anyone watched MTV reality TV growing up, for like the early 2000s to 2010s era. So Whitney was actually on The Hills, which was a spinoff of Laguna Beach, which was a reality show following like high schoolers who then like graduate and all have different jobs in the city. Very, think like Paris Hilton era, but they were like from the small town, so they were like figuring out Hollywood basically. But Whitney was on the show, and then her husband, her now husband, was a producer on a show she was on later. They started dating after the show ended, so no controversies there. But it's fun because their reaction videos are like relatively lighthearted. Um, it's not like clickbaity with like extreme, overly dramatic reactions. It's more of them reacting to the show as if they were watching it, but then also giving background information of this feels like a produced storyline of like a different show, or the producer will say, "Oh, well, this is like a classic producer move. This is how they probably got this shot." Like these two people are having different conversations, but they edited it together to look like this person's yelling at this person when like realistically that probably didn't happen. So anyway, it's very fun. It's very like not having to think, and it's a fun way to consume a show that I used to watch, but now it feels like, yeah, like it's social having two friends that are watching it with me without the logistics of having to plan two friends to come over and watch it with me. So it's very good for like, oh, I have 20 minutes. Let me like throw this on. Or hey, I'm trying to like find a stud to put a bracket for this shelf. Let me just like throw this on the background. And if I like miss half an episode, I've already seen it. So it's fine.
You said that, and I'm like, now I feel like extra nerd because what I put on that's like equivalent to what you just said, it shows like history tea time with Lindsay Holiday,
That
where
sounds
she's like
amazing.
talking about, whatever, such and such monarchy and things like that. Like it's literally history.
At least that's
Um,
educational. Mine,
well,
unless it's like
yeah,
a
but
very
sometimes it's
niche
like
trivia
literally, I mean,
topic.
she's calling it history tea time, but sometimes they're just spilling the tea on like, how incestuous some of these groups were. And it's like, so they were related like a little too much. But she does it interesting. She's not
Yeah,
like, it's yeah. Anyways, but
I love
it's
it.
like people that have been long dead. So there is that too. And it's
Yeah.
like, who cares? Whatever. But I don't know. That's very, very nerdy, but I like
Gossip
that
about historical figures. That sounds great. Sign me up.
pretty
Maybe
much.
I'll add that to my rotation.
Pretty much. I mean, some of it can be a little cringe because human history will, but some of that, but no, I don't know. I think, as we wrap this up, I think it's like always interesting and kind of like the goal with us sharing this is like how one creative activity can generate ideas for our main practices. And
Mhm.
I mean, in our experience, it can be like anything. It could be a color scheme, in a video game. It could be artwork in the background of a TV show. Um, to me, it can even be like something somebody said, right? That you're just like half listening because you're doing, errands or doing chores or whatever, and they'll be like somebody will mention something where you're like, I actually would love to make a painting about that, or I want to research this further, or like for me, I can't tell you how many screenshots are on my phone, seriously, of like they'll put these beautiful dresses or whatever, and I'll see this one pattern, and I'm like, I want this in a painting, kind of thing, or I want to find out more about it, about this lace pattern, and it'll end up being abstracted out, but like it's something that just
Mhm.
kind of like lights a fire. It just kind of like, I don't know, it like triggers something else. And I always find it interesting, like as like we talk about this and like part of we're sharing this is like giving ourselves the time to allow to follow non-art related interests and giving ourselves the opportunity to refill our creative tank. So then we can go back to our practice, re-energize, and then we can translate some of these new experiences, some of these visual inputs into other art. But I think the
Mhm.
key here is like fighting that idea of, but I'm not doing something that's for this. Like instead of watching the show, instead of playing this video game, instead of going to that dance, right? It's giving ourselves grace and permission to say, no, I need other things to do. It can't just be art, 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 art. Even if even if some of us do that a lot, but like in our heads, right? But just giving ourselves permission to say like, no, I need other inputs, that
Mhm.
then could translate into something in my art, but not giving ourselves the pressure of, if it's not art related, it's somehow worth less to our art or our time in general. So I don't know. I feel like that's I'm glad we got to talk about this for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's definitely important. And it also shows that no matter where you are on your creative journey, you're never going to be like full gas, creative, inspired all the time. But there are those natural times when a creative distraction may not be as end of the world negative as we think. There's a reason for it, and it's kind of part of the creative journey in the end. So we're right there in their trenches with you. So yeah,
It is cyclical after all.
yeah.
It's not a steady yeah, no, it's definitely cyclical. But with that, we're gonna go ahead and wrap today's conversation, and we hope you enjoyed this episode.
As always, our blog will be linked in the show notes where you will find episode notes and links to all of our other podcast episodes.
And if you want to stay connected with us in between episodes, share your feedback, or have a question you would like for us to answer on the podcast, you can reach us through social media. I'm at ameighart across all platforms.
And I'm at jsandersstudio on all platforms. And if you want to follow the podcast, we're at levelupartists on Instagram.
You can also visit us at levelupartists.com, get immediate access to template resources and more to level up your creative career today.
Thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you in the next episode.